The 31 Waikato peat lakes form the largest collection of peat lake habitat in New Zealand. They're unique and fragile ecosystems and part of the Living Water Scheme. Tim Brandenburg and Dock Ranger Glenn Morgan are at Lake Ariari having a look at some recent work.
Peat lakes are naturally low nutrient habitats and environments, so when they were formed before all this farmland around here and the nutrient run off this land, a natural peat lake has a high pH, quite acidic and low in nutrients. So the plants and the fish and birds and everything around a natural peat lake is actually adapted to a low nutrient environment. So by stripping out the nutrients that are coming into the lake, we're actually returning the water that's flowing into the lake to what it would have been naturally, much lower in nutrients.
The scheme has helped fund silt traps that lower sediment and nutrients going into the lake.
There's a drain that enters in down the hill here, comes in, creates a flow in a circular motion. The only way the water can get out is by going to the opposite way of the flow over our bund there. So all the solids and the sediment settle out and the runoff in this pool. Then it flows through a series of bunds where it settles out more, and the only way it can flow out is through the existing wetland here. In the deep part of the trap here, which is the initial pool, the suspended solids in the water effectively settle out. We'll come in 3 to 5 years depending on the amount that settles out and actually dredge these pools out. Out of those pools we'll be getting a lot of sediment which is really high in nutrient, really soluble too, so it acts as ideal fertiliser to spread back onto farmland. So at the moment we've sort of got a blank canvas to actually come in and plant this whole area, and yeah, we've got a couple more down this way too.
The scheme is dependent on support from local groups, iwi and farmers too. At Lake Ruatuna and neighbouring Rotomanaka, work has already started.
The Living Water project here at Lake Ruatuna is a pretty impressive start to the program. As you can see already behind me, there's been a lot of work already carried out with the willow removal. And the willows, of course, are spread pretty quickly, and so once they get into a lake like this, controlling them is a real issue. Getting the willows out, getting the natives back in means that, one, that the natives will reduce the amount of leachate going back into the lake. That'll slow the whole process down. So this is quite a unique lake in terms of it's one of the few that will really benefit from this kind of planting because it hasn't been degraded so far. So getting those plants in will be really critical to its future success.
Local farmers have been involved too. They have lots of reasons to buy into the scheme and have a real sense of guardianship towards the land.
Been a dairy farmer for over 40 years. We have a dairy farm of about 700 cows just south of Ahaupo. It's around Lake Serpentine or Rotopico. Good farming practices are often good for the environment as well. It's like with your soils and your fertiliser policies. If you're testing your soil, you know what's there. So you apply what's necessary for the plants to get your best pasture production, and then the rest just follows. If you're putting the right amount on, you're not wasting money by putting excessive fertiliser on, and the excessive fertiliser goes to the environment, so that's also a negative impact as well. Most farmers have a pride in their land and how they look after it, and they like to look after it and improve it and pass it on to the next generation in a better state than it was before.
We're farming in the Porongia area. We farm approximately 280 hectares. We've got 700 cows, we've got a horticulture unit, commercial craftering unit, and we do a substantial amount of cropping, which is fed into the cows in the dairy unit. So we're a pretty mixed sort of enterprise, and our whole objective is ascertaining high yields per hectare. In the grain sector, that's getting over 20 tonne of grain. In the forage sector, that's working towards 50 tonne a hectare. So it's an intensive cropping system to feed our dairy cows. It is a challenge because there is a financial burden with a lower income, but I think if we look outside the square, and there's always management issues that we can do that'll actually improve, whether it's the soil or whether it's the watercourse, and we can still do some planting. But I think if we look outside the square, we can find areas on our property that we can work on a daily basis, and that might be just the way we manage our stock or how long we leave them there. We've got to take ownership. We're the ones that do the farming. Farmers are very good at looking after their soil and their livestock. They're the ones of all knowledge. I don't think the farming sector give themselves credit for the amount of knowledge we have. We seem to transfer and need academics or consultants to give us the information. But I think as farmers, we've got to look at ourselves and say we're very highly qualified, and we can put in place things that will help the environment without having rules on the land to make us do it.
The Living Water Scheme is focused on environments where there's intensive dairying and great biodiversity. Coming up after the break, we're at another catchment where the impact of intensive dairying could have global environmental effects.